Hey, well, good morning, everybody, and welcome to the One Ancestor at a Time live stream on YouTube and also on TikTok. So today I would love to share with you a special treasure, but first I'd just like to introduce myself a bit more formally. My name is Suitaloa Simon Young, and I'm coming to you live from Te Kopua, Henderson in West Auckland, Aotearoa, New Zealand. I acknowledge Te Kauroa Maki as mana whenua, the traditional guardians of this land. And so today, One Ancestor at a Time is a place where we, and by we, I mean often me, but I would love this to be a dialogue where we discuss how not only to research and know and understand our family history and understand history through our family history, but also to tell the story in ways that future generations or even current generations will appreciate. So today, it's a bit of a work in progress. I want to share with you a family treasure that I picked up on my recent trip to the UK. Now, most of my DNA and most of my ancestry comes from the UK, but it was only last year when I turned 50 that I actually finally got to go to the homeland. And yeah, it's for good reason. You know, it's the furthest place away from New Zealand, or New Zealand is the furthest place away from the UK. So kind of a long way away. So it's taken me a little while. Now, if you've been following this channel for a while, you may know that my grandfather, who was the man who never gave up, he came to Aotearoa from the UK, and he was the first of his whole family. So he was the eldest of the brothers. They all came in the Flock House sort of scholarship scheme. So they came and lived here in the 1930s. They lived here during the Depression. And then all the rest of them, including his father, my great-grandfather, Commander Charles Young, they went back to the UK in the mid-30s. And only my grandfather remained here in Aotearoa and started a family, including my dad. But the rest of them went back home to a place called Hayling Island in Portsmouth. And the two families kind of coexisted. They're, as I say, these two locations are the furthest away you can get from each other. So there wasn't a lot of communication. But now we're in the age of social media. And so in recent years, it's been really amazing to get back in touch with my UK family and actually learn about our kind of shared history and also present, and you know what everyone's been up to the last 100 or so years. So it was amazing to actually go visit the family. I say family homestead. It's a lovely little house, but it's the house that my great-grandfather built when he went back in 1938. It's the same house where the family still lives. So that was pretty amazing. The ancestral seat, as my first cousin, second removed, told me. I think that's right. Now, please don't take my word for it on first cousin, second removed, all that kind of stuff. Basically, we're all family, and that's all I know about it. So, anyway, I went to Hayling Island. I met up with this wonderful family. So good to get to know them. This is my I think he's my second cousin, basically same generation as me, Jason, and his mum Linda, who's my dad's first cousin. Now, when I was hanging around at home with the family, they brought out a box of all kinds of things, and they said something that was very exciting to me. They said, "Oh, not yet. No. They said, you're the family historian now," because they'd been watching these videos. Now, I know I've done a video about why I do one ancestor at a time, and there's all sorts of reasons. But obviously, I'm telling my family story, so the people I'm related to are audience number one. And what I found is that people don't always let you know, they don't always comment, but they are watching. And it was really such a lovely thing to hear. We watch your stories, we really appreciate them, and here's a box full of stuff like family papers and records and things that you might enjoy, and they're yours now, basically. Wow. Now, I went on a one bag trip. I took just TikTok viewers know this. I went with one not hugely big backpack. It was heavy, but it wasn't that big. So I had to decide, what am I going to put in this bag? And man, it was worth it. It was worth it. So one of the many treasures that I picked up was the journal of my great, great, great grandfather, Charles Beecher Young. Lieutenant Charles Beecher Young, Bengal engineers in passing up the Nile from Alexandria to the Red Sea, February 28th to June 21st, 1837. Beautiful, beautiful. So why am I showing you the photo? I've got the real thing right here. This beautiful, surprisingly good condition for 1837. That is a long time ago. And so on the same trip, I was visiting archives and museums and looking at their archival material. There's a whole protocol. You've got to wear white gloves. You've got to have all kinds of weighted anchors and things to hold pages down. So I probably should be handling this with a bit more care. But what I did do as soon as I got back to New Zealand was I scanned it. Now, it's really worthwhile if you're archiving or if you're dealing with family treasures. It's really good to invest in a good scanner. I got, after researching around, like, what is the best scanner for scanning photos, documents, that sort of thing. It is the Epson Perfection, humble, isn't it? Epson Perfection V39 2. That's like II, Roman numerals. Yeah, and that has been a really good scanner in terms of just capturing things, in terms of scanning fairly fast. Like, scanning is not the most fun thing to do. Also, these days, we're really blessed that our cameras on our phones are very good quality. So when I went to the archives and the Postal Museum, Glasgow University, Edinburgh University, I was able to simply take photos of archival materials, which is great because it doesn't damage the books. So unfortunately, this, I may have done a little damage to it when I laid it flat, although it's quite good at opening flat. Really very lucky in that way. So I haven't scanned it all yet. That's quite a job. And so I'm taking this a little bit like the old saying about an elephant. How do you eat an elephant? One bite at a time. And I'm doing that with this as well. And I just thought that today I would talk you through a bit of the process. But first, I wanted to give you a bit of a background of who Lieutenant C.B. Young is and what are my thoughts about the times that he lived in and all that kind of stuff. So let's have a look at his ancestry page, which I've put together. And also the great thing about Ancestry, the great thing about My Heritage, is that you are working with others who have also added information. So he's on many other people's family trees as well. Now, you've always got to double check these, because sometimes people don't have accurate information and they'll run off and start propagating information that's not true. Not deliberately, but just carelessly. I may be guilty of that, because sometimes I will accept a connection or a hint without verifying it first in order to come to it later. That's actually not best practice. Do as I say, not as I do. Anyway, so Charles Beecher Young, the picture is actually from me, and it is probably him. It's an educated guess that this is what he looked like. So this picture came from a locket, which was from my great aunt Elsie. Beautiful little hand-painted locket, which was given to my father and mother, with these tiny little photos. And again, a good scanner. I scanned this photo at something like 600 dpi, 600 dots per inch, which can make a photo blow up in great detail. So Charles was born in 1816 and died in 1892. Cameras were invented in about 1840. So this could have been any time in his middle age to old age. It's a little overexposed, so we can't really tell that much about age. We can see that he's got a few wrinkles. He's not a super young man. And so he died in 1892, so it's obviously before then. Now, the other photo in the locket may well have been his son, Lamont, who passed away or was anyway missing, presumed murdered in 1880. So this is possibly before 1880. And again, given who the locket belonged to and who it might be in the family, it is a guess that this is the face of my ancestor. Even if not, it gives me something to anchor upon. It's really good to see photos of our people. So yeah, 1816, born in India. Not India, that's from somebody else's family tree, but yes, West Bengal, Kolkata, Kolkata now, is part of India, indeed. And so he was born there. What was he doing in India? What was this Englishman doing in India? So he was part of the Bengal Engineers, which in turn was part of the world's biggest multinational corporation. And this is where history is really interesting, because at the time, probably most people thought that the East India Company was a really good thing, and it was perhaps a good influence on the world, all that kind of stuff. Nowadays, of course, there's a bit more of a nuanced view of it. In fact, it's probably seen by most people as a bad thing when you've got a company, a private company that exists for the benefit of its shareholders only, actually kind of not only dictating what happens in another country all the way over the world, but also kind of pulling the United Kingdom around and dictating what happens. Basically money wins. So the East India Company was founded in the 1600s, founded in 1600, in fact, and dissolved in 1874. So a very long-lasting company. And it was so big that it actually had its own army. In fact, the army was bigger, twice the size of the British Army at certain times. So my ancestor was part of a private corporate army, which is mind-blowing. We think that Amazon, Meta, Google, Microsoft are big. They are big, but they don't have their private armies that I know of. And so, yeah, extremely mixed feelings about my ancestor's role in this organization, because it actually brought a lot of suffering. It dispossessed the Sikhs of their empire, and my ancestor played a key role in actually bringing that about. And then there was the so-called Indian Mutiny in 1857, which is now known as the First Indian War of Independence. Really a big change in focus there. And recently, if you listen to podcasts, the Empire podcast with William Dalrymple and Anita Anand is excellent for actually bringing this time to life. William Dalrymple, like myself, is descended from people who worked in the East India Company, and has a lot to say about those times. He's a very careful historian. He doesn't oversimplify, because what I'm coming to is that history is nuanced, it's complicated, it has some very black and white things, and it has some things that, what am I trying to say here? I'm saying that if we try to Hollywoodize movies, if we try to Hollywoodize history into good guys and bad guys, we run the risk of avoiding seeing ourselves when we're being the bad guys. And when you're related to the bad guy, that's a really interesting point. That's kind of the story of our time for white people, is that we have to face the things that our ancestors have done. And sometimes when I talk about this, people accuse me of liberal guilt. I don't feel any guilt for anything that I didn't do. I was born in the 1900s, in the 1970s. I was born much more recently than all this. I wasn't there when it happened. I didn't have any choice in making things happen or not happen. But I do have a choice as to whether I use fossil fuels. I mean, actually, almost not. How I use fossil fuels. I have a choice in the companies that I buy from, and I have a choice in so many things that are today. And understanding the history is really helpful. So, I really recommend, if you're interested in this time period, if you're interested in Indian history, and you don't have to be Indian. So the other thing is, the East India Company, everyone in India knows about it. In the UK, where it started, barely anybody knows. So that's really, really interesting, because it's an uncomfortable part of our history, just as is in New Zealand, the Te Tiriti of Waitangi betrayals, flagrant betrayals by the New Zealand government almost immediately after signing the treaty. It's uncomfortable, because even if we didn't initiate it, we're complicit in it. We benefit from the inequities that started, all that kind of stuff. So anyway, all that to say, I started this journey not sure how to look at my ancestor, and I have come to see it like the way that we look at our parents. We love our parents; they're part of us. We don't always agree with them. That's my starting point. The same standard applies to all my ancestors, because we're all human. I can, and this actually affects the way that I look at everybody. There is nobody that I can go, they're just this or they're just that, even though what they're part of is really not good. So, for example, very timely, Minnesota in the United States, what the current American government, federal government, is doing is really, it's fascistic. It's inhuman, the way that they're treating people. And yet each of those ICE officers are still human beings. So I was sent a video on TikTok, and it was somebody saying, first of all, you need to realize these ICE agents are not human. And that's what I stopped watching, because that's not true. Everyone is human, and everyone has the capacity to change their mind, except for people who have already died, which is where we come to history. But then they have the capacity to change our mind. And that's actually really good. I might write that down. The people who've been involved in things in the past that we don't approve of, it's worthy of investigating. What did it look like? Because we see this with Nazi Germany as well. Evil rarely comes out with devil horns and goes, I'm bad, let's be bad. And not many people wake up in the morning and think, I'm gonna hurt as many people as I can today. We often do what we do. We do the bad we do, thinking that it will be for good. So anyway, that's the context that I wanted to help you understand. And I will be doing a full proper episode on this with proper research and less waffling, to try and find the reality of life. Now, the other thing with history is that, as you saw, the East India Company started in 1600, ended 1874. That's a long time. That's roughly, almost 300 years. And so it's easy to take the whole thing and go, the whole thing was fascistic or bad, but actually really bad stuff doesn't last that long, because people end up complaining. And now England, by the stage of the 1800s, was quite democratic. Yes, they had a queen, Victoria, but they also had a really strong parliament. They had an opposition. And so there was a lot of voices in the UK who were saying, this company has too much power, or when there were human rights abuses, there would be an outcry about it. It's the same era when people are challenging slavery and outlawing slavery. So there was a really strong movement among people in the UK that, we should do better. We should be better. That even if people were pro-empire, there were some voices that said we should be treating people well. I've got different points of view on whether empire can ever be good. I don't think it can. But there were some voices that sincerely believed that, and a lot of that was in the company as well. So this character, Charles, his uncle John was a chaplain in the East India Company. Now, there was a bigger influence of evangelical Christianity in the 1800s, and that brought with it a lot of the human rights dialogue. Now, it sort of depends who you ask here. So, on one hand, it brought more of an awareness of human rights, because the Bible talks about all human beings being made in the image of God. That was the same logic driving the slavery abolition movement. On the other hand, there had been quite a peaceful, pluralistic coexistence in India among Muslims, which were the ruling majority, the Mughal Empire, Christians from England and also from France, Hindus, obviously, from India, and Sikhs and many other religions. They had been getting on quite well. And then the kind of rise or the spike in evangelical Christianity did start to put a bit of division in there. The British started to want to use their power to influence the way things were. Anyway, this episode, this live, is not about the Indian Mutiny or the First War of Indian Independence. That will be a future episode. This episode is about this precious taonga, and this is before my ancestor was heavily involved in India, becoming a major general. So he was an engineer. He was part of the Bengal engineers. He rose to major general in rank, which is pretty senior. And he was a painter as well. So I actually found that out through just Googling. There's an auction house which had some of his medals and some of his paintings, and a bit of a bio, which was really amazing to read. And so, yeah, he was a painter. So this man of war was also a man of art. The 1800s, that wasn't an unusual thing. So when it's your ancestor, there's a saying that says it's really wise to be able to hold two competing points of view and not have to resolve them. So on the one hand, what he was part of, I disagree with. A corporate army, unbridled power, corruption, that sort of stuff. Yeah, not good. On the other side is the raw energy. Energy is not good or bad. It's just how you direct it. So in my genes, in my whakapapa, in my history, is somebody who commanded armies as a major general, somebody who devised solutions as literally a bridge builder and an engineer. And so whenever I'm feeling at war with my to-do list and we're trying to get things organized, he is one of the people that I can remember and go, oh, he had the skill and the quality of personality to actually make that happen, not only to get himself organized, but to get others organized. Yes, some of that is skill and it's learned, and nature versus nurture, how much of the stuff is intrinsic. But as a story that I can refer to and call on, I can go, oh yeah, if he did it, so can I. That's the other thing about our ancestors. Some spiritualities say our ancestors are always with us, and I don't really care whether that's physically, scientifically true or just imaginatively true, because in so many ways our imagination makes our reality, right? So yeah, being able to have him there as a resource to call upon and go, yeah, I need to get my act together. By the way, heaps of people joining. Hello. Just seeing if there's any comments I've missed. I don't think I have. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining. It's really great to have you here. Okay, anyway, but I digress. So that was my thinking about my great grandfather. Now, 1837, so he's only 21 years old at this stage. He's a lieutenant. I've been watching Star Trek and I'm hearing lieutenant all the time, but the British, for some reason, call it lieutenant. So he's a lieutenant. And let's have a look at his journal. It's a beautiful document. Wait, where am I going? There we go. Okay. So, to be returned to Mrs. James Young. So that's odd, isn't it? But back in the old days, a wife was not only not known by her maiden name, her last name, she wasn't even known by her first name. She was known Mrs. and then her husband's name. So anyway, this is to be returned to Charles's mother. So it was obviously being lent around. Diary, beautiful writing, isn't it? It's amazing. Diary of Lieutenant, and then in pencil you can see that somebody has later gone General, 1867. So that's really helpful for my genealogical records. I already had that, but it was really good to know 1867 is when he got made a general. CB Young, Bengal engineers, and passing up the Nile. So the Nile, as you can tell, is in Egypt. Why was he in Egypt? And in doing this, I was really able to draw on ChatGPT and Claude as research assistants because, anyway, let's go. Why was he in Egypt? Because Egypt was a crucial through point in between the UK and India. So it was vital. Just like it is today, the Suez Canal is a very important through point for shipping, just like the Panama Canal is in America. So he was there on a mission, on a military mission as an engineer, but he was also there on an art mission because also with this journal was a published book, which I left back in the UK, and perhaps I'll pick it up next time. And that is, let me just find, there we go. So he was a gifted artist. This is a sketch that he did of his daughter, Elsie. And these are some of the pictures that he did. I don't know if you can see that very clearly. Overland sketches, Lieutenant C.B. Young, Bengal engineers. Nice landscape. And it's actually published as a book. So that was a complete surprise to me. And also challenged my picture of him as a soldier / painter. But then it's not exactly artistic or interpretive. It's very much documentary. So in the same way that nowadays you have photographers, you have LiDAR scanners getting 3D maps of everything. So there was some art to it, but there was also some reconnaissance to it. So we've got Cleopatra's Needle. Now this is really interesting because I wish I'd looked at this before I planned my London trip, because Cleopatra's Needle is now in London. It's an artifact that was taken by the British to London, like many things. I'm not sure what it is with us kleptomaniac Brits, but we just don't like to leave things where they are. This is Pompey's Pillar, famous pillar. There it is again. This is the palace of the Pasha at Cairo. So you can sort of get a sense of the climate, pretty arid and dry. The palace is very much kind of that European style, I guess. Maybe this Ottoman style. Actually, what do I know about architecture? A mosque. There we go. And a sphinx. And that's by his daughter Elsie, who the painting gene continued in the family. So amazing that he actually did this painting and he did this journal. Now going back to the journal, you may pick up that it's quite hard to read. He didn't have the easiest to read handwriting, and yet that was probably quite standard for the time. So enter AI, and my first tool to use was ChatGPT, which is my sort of main go-to. And I said, can you perform handwriting recognition on this? Not very good at all. So then I went to Claude, which in the past had done a really good job at recognizing quite difficult handwriting. On my mum's side, somebody related to our German side had sent me a scan of a postcard with that funny German script. It sort of looks like ye olde newspaper writing, and Claude did really well at actually reading it. So I put this into Claude and said, can you just read this and transcribe this, please? And you know what? not amazing, but also not terrible. It gives me something to start with, and sometimes the words are very, very clear. So yeah, again, the importance of getting a good scan is really, really important. Yeah, having a good scan means you can blow it up and really go, okay, that is definitely donkeys. Streets, narrow. Okay, some words are real easy. So then I took the document which Claude had done and put it into a Google Doc, and that has become my kind of main thing. Now, I did another thing with ChatGPT actually, and I said, tell me about why this man may have been in Egypt at the time. Because when you're reading it word by word, the great thing about it is you are sucked into that day, that moment. Because, as I said before, East India Company, about 300 years, sometimes we look at history as a big blob. And really, history, as does the present, takes place 1 second at a time. And so the painstaking detail of having to go through every word kind of took me into the day with him. And this is why I'm making pretty slow progress on this, but it is a real interesting project to dip into when I've got some spare time. So commentary, I go, hey, buddy's what I call my chat GPT. And then it gave me some information. Talking about what's going on, speculation. Why would a young British lieutenant be there? Contemporaries. So who else was there at the same time? So that's really interesting, because when we read something that is set in 2026, we know all that's going on. We know Russia, Ukraine, Israel, Gaza, Sudan, if we're really plugged into the news, US, we know the context. As far as my knowledge of 1837, Queen Victoria ascended the throne. It was 2 years since Aotearoa had its Declaration of Independence. That's pretty much it. Everything else about what's going on in the world, I've really got to think. So this is a great use of AI, and it's not mindlessly trusting whatever AI says. It's asking it to provide you sources so you can dig further. But in terms of just getting the great thing about AI is it's like Google, but it lets you ask longer questions. I mean, that's the simplest thing, is that you can get a quick overview of something that you need. So 1837, we've got building the overland Suez mail route, many of Muhammad Ali. So Muhammad Ali, not the famous boxer, but in this case, the Pasha, or Pasha is like the leader of an area, if I remember correctly. British antiquarians, and so there was a lot of the kind of people who take stuff to museums, and archaeologists, and there was a real sense, just like in the video about my other great grandfather, Samuel Henry Drew of Whanganui Museum. This was the era when we wanted to build encyclopedic and complete knowledge about the whole world. And with it came a bit of an arrogance that we did know the whole world. There was a lot of cultural appropriation. There was a lot of assuming, a lot of guessing, and dressing up the guessing as knowledge. Travelers like Prince Pukler Muskau, not sure if the pronunciation is right, visited the Nile. And so, Young's journey would have overlapped with or paralleled such efforts. Fascinating. And then geopolitical relationships, because sometimes in this journal, he'll talk about visiting the Pasha's palace, which we saw the painting of, or his ship, his fleet, having a look at it. And he'll mention French. And so I said to ChatGPT, I said, are the British and French frenemies at this stage? That was pretty much the thing. So the French and British were often at war, but not during this stage. But they weren't best mates. They were rivals, and Egypt was kind of a middle ground, and a little bit like how the Pacific Islands are right now. The USA on one side and China on the other side want to actually court them and have influence over them through soft power. It was the same case with Egypt. Sometimes they were getting technology and knowledge from France. Sometimes they're getting technology and knowledge from England. Very, very interesting. So yeah, here is this young man with his last name Young. He stood at a pivotal moment. His training in engineering and art found expression among the Nile, where he sketched temples, landscapes, and fortifications. This journey was both a practical reconnaissance and an artistic awakening. It likely set the trajectory for his later career, combining soldierly duties with a painter's vision. I like how eloquent AI gets sometimes. Sometimes it's a bit much, but that was really, it's really great to be able to have an off-the-cuff commentary for the primary documents we're reading, because history doesn't often come with a lot of context. Speaking of context, so I started transcribing. February 20th, 1837, Alexandria, which is famous for having the big library that burnt down many years ago. And he doesn't find it very impressive at all. He's after monuments, he's after mosques and minarets, but instead he's looking at people. He doesn't seem to like people all that much, which is a pity. Then I came across a word and I'm like, what is that? Janizary. Then I was able to ask ChatGPT, what could this word mean? I gave it the context, and then this was really helpful. Wait, where's my footnote? Janizary. There you go. And found and cited, so future readers of this document can refer to it, a locally hired or consular armed guard or official who could browbeat porters and shake down travelers. It actually super fits exactly what he's talking about. Difficulty with janizary about luggage. Yours too often, or I don't think that's the right word. He wanted basically to open all the luggage, but stopped when we gave him a few piastres, which is a form of currency in Egypt in the 1800s. Then we talked about individuals. Hotel nearly full of people come from India by Hugh Lindsay. So that sounds like a boat. And indeed, it was a boat. And went out with 2 officers from HMS Blazer, which again, it's amazing the amount of context we can gather. Cleopatra's Needle. Whoops, didn't mean to actually click on that. Yeah. So anyway, basically, so far, it's a pretty uneventful journal. But what's been great, and what you can learn from if you've got a similar treasure, is just be patient, but also because of AI, you've got so much more option. And if I come back and revisit what I talked about in last week's live stream, which is recorded, you can watch it as well. The use of AI in family history, it can be used for so many things. In this case, it's helpful for handwriting recognition, even though it's not perfect. By that, let me show you. So I track where I'm up to by how many footnotes and comments that I've added. But okay, I don't think I've gotten up to Friday the 10th. No, that's right. So this is not updated. Some really weird words, but what's good is that that Claude didn't try to make a word fit something that the letters weren't actually saying. So in other words, I had to go back and look at the original file and see what was that word. But I'm really glad that it didn't try to correct it to something, because that can be completely confusing. Even this morning, I'm sure it is morning, but it's just the way that it's been written. So yeah, so AI handwriting recognition, definitely not perfect, but a way to start. Secondly, AI as your contextual research assistant, and just have an attitude of curiosity. Like, I love traveling, and so obviously I picked this up on my travels, so it's got special memories for me. But through this, I haven't been to Egypt yet, but through this, I'm taking a real slow trip through Egypt with my ancestor, which is amazing. And every time there's a word that he uses that I don't understand, I'm able to explore that. And that is simply how you use AI to get a bit of context, whether it's micro context. So we've found ourselves fastened to the bank at Nagkit. What is Nagkit? It's a place, possibly Nekrit, Nagrit, or Nakrit. And that was, again, help from ChatGPT, and that's somewhere I can look up on the map and know exactly where he was. So that's the micro kind of thing. What's the name of this place? Or the macro thing is when I'm wondering, what is he not saying in his journal? So, for example, let's have a look. As food. There we go. Okay, cool. Yeah, this was interesting. So I went and sketched Cleopatra's Needle. Now, we've seen the painting that came from that, merely because remarkable, not picturesque. Quite judgy, isn't he? After breakfast, went to the dockyard, storehouses spacious and good. Mohammed Effendi showed us, being taught 11 years in England, good plans and models, his brother-in-law, an Englishman, with him. So interesting. Now, I'm fascinated about cross-cultural stories. So yeah, there's definitely an English connection, which means that the French will be probably excluded from this relationship because there's an English brother-in-law. When there's a marriage bond, that's pretty hard to break. All men at work, soldiers or sailors, with the Pasha's mark, an anchor on the hand, so a tattoo, pay 20 piastres a month. And I don't know if they pay or if they are paid anyway, and they are fed and clothed. So I did some research here. Workers were conscripts branded with an anchor tattoo. They received basic pay, food, and clothing. So that's just, if that's not clear. Tasted food, lentils boiled with broken up bread, turkub, which is possibly a misspelling of tarid, which is bread soaked in broth or stew. But it was so salty that I took care to spit it out directly. I took care. Oh my goodness. I got out of sight of them, saw a boy writing quickly and well, began to read it. Men came round, seemed pleased, and assisted me, because literacy was not something that was taken for granted. So a little boy writing quickly and well would have been pretty amazing. Then afterwards took pen and wrote myself. Quite a crowd around me. Now, pretty easy to gather a crowd those days if you're doing something that not many people can do. So this is ChatGPT's commentary, a striking literacy moment. Writing was impressive in this context. Locals gathered, pleased to see a European showing interest and skill. Now, I'm not sure if he means he's writing in English or Arabic. Now, probably not Arabic, because another question that I asked ChatGPT was like, would people in those days know Arabic? Now, probably not, because he didn't live in Egypt. He was just on a trip. But even Englishmen who lived in Egypt tended to speak French and English, and that's it. They maybe understood, they could hear what was being spoken in Arabic, but not really. It was kind of looked down on as well, sadly. So it would be neat if he was writing Arabic. That would be worth having a crowd gather around. But writing in English, sure, okay, that's cool. Chief workmen get 15p a day. Those with the mark, the tattoo, the anchor on their hand, not allowed to go outside gate. Any man who chooses may send his son when 5 years old and the pasha for his service, and continue to draw for him 5 piastres, not pennies, a month. But his son continues in the service for life. Yikes. This is really harsh labor practices. Conscription for life from childhood, with the father drawing a stipend, almost like hereditary naval servitude. Wow. Fine rope walk, many ships on stocks. So he's talking about the ships in the dockyard. 74s chiefly, very good carpentry work and models. So as an engineer, even at 21 years old, this young man knows his stuff. He knows what he's looking for. What I don't really know is why he's doing this kind of inspection. Afterwards, went on board the Admiral's ship, 104 guns, well kept and polished, awnings up, men cleaning decks, all traps highly polished. Crew, 1,000 men, 900 sailors, 100 marines, officers, 15, sub-officers, 2 lieutenants, commander, and captain. It's a bit of almost certainly so that's right. In the research, when I copied and pasted this into ChatGPT, it said almost certainly the Mahmoudiye launched in 1829. So that's, by this stage, that's 8 years before. Then one of the largest warships in the Mediterranean. His crew breakdown shows a European-style structure. So we're actually seeing one 104 gun boat would be quite big, I imagine. Quite big, because each gun would be a cannon, essentially. All sub-officers sleep below in good-sized cabins, but not so neatly furnished as English midshipmen's. Admiral's cabin, very good. Library, and French officer showed us about ships. So here's the first mention of a French person. That's interesting. So even though you probably wouldn't get a British and a French military unit collaborating on anything, in Egypt there was that collaboration. Fascinating. And here's a bit of commentary about that. Notes the influence of French advisors in the Egyptian Navy. So this geopolitical thing really makes it quite interesting in terms of what to look out for in the journal to come. Proceeded to steamship Nile, built with Bolton and Watts engines, 70s, after a model of the Medea in our service mounts 184 pre. Sometimes you just don't know what the words are. I didn't understand this. In the boom on traversing platforms, hollow shot, 5 or 6 Europeans on board. Now, tell me, ChatGPT, what does this mean? The Nile was a steam frigate with imported Bolton and Watt engines. He said it was modeled on HMS Medea, launched 1833. All this fact-checking and cross-checking, it's exciting. His scrawled I-84 pre-something likely refers to 84-pounder guns mounted on traversing platforms, modern artillery capable of firing explosive shells. So, pretty exciting. Yeah, the young version of me that played with toy soldiers is pretty excited by this story, especially because this is like a week into the trip. The other weeks have just been doing a sketch here, a sketch there, and so this was really exciting to get to this day. Pasha's yacht, of which he's very fond, pretty boat, cabin low, saw cockroaches crawling about. Pasha's palace, large, low building. His old palace in town, sold to the French. Interesting. So he had a seaside palace at Alexandria. Selling his old palace to the French reflects his close dealings with European powers. Now, did he need the money, or was he trying to curry favor by throwing them a bone? Don't know. Returned to shore and went to see some horsemanship. A great many Europeans, pretty ladies, etc. Very cool. Okay, Friday the 3rd, Pasha's troops, drums and fifes seem to be their only music. Again, so judgy. Stand 3 deep as French in rank and file. So again, he's noting the French cultural and military influence. March pretty well. Muskets appear to be well kept, chiefly employed in buying materials for trip and Cairo and writing letters for packet expected from Beirut, which, although it's spelt weird, yes, that's an early 19th century English spelling of Beirut. Now, if you're dealing with any old documents, they didn't spell anything consistently until the 20th century. This goes for surnames as well. It goes for forenames. It goes for everything. Place names. Spelling was all over the place. So it's good. It's actually good that I've got experience dealing with people who have English as a second language. Like, a lot of my life has been spent thinking about how stuff sounds. English is such a weird language. So yeah, if you've got that mind that can generally recognize a pattern, that's really helpful. Saturday 4th, okay, it starts to get less interesting. Now, I just thought I'd share that particular ship inspection with you, because when you do storytelling this way, you are going along almost in real time. And then when you get to something that's a bit more substantial or exciting, it's really exciting. So yeah, so I'm normally talking about storytelling. I'm normally talking about the end result, which is designed for people with short attention spans and, not a lot of cognitive resource that they can. You've got to grab their attention and take them through the narrative. This is a different kind of storytelling. And it's what I love about it is that it's I'm doing the work. And I think that's why family historians love to do this stuff, because there's always two stories. There's a story of what actually happened. There's a story that my great-great-great-grandfather, as a 21-year-old, went up the Nile. That's cool. Then there's other stories about that. There's a story of me being given this journal and doing all this painstaking work of transcription. There's no urgency about it. There's no particular priority about it. I maybe get to work on this once a month, maybe for fun. But the sense of enrichment is really strong. And I think when I talk with family historians, that's the thing that they wish that they could share with everyone. It sort of reminds me of my early days as a new Christian. I wanted to tell the whole world. It's a little bit like that with family historians. They've found an experience that is amazing, very fulfilling, very satisfying, and they kind of want to tell the whole world. And sadly, that's why us family historians get the reputation in our families as don't start a conversation with them about family history, because we tell the wrong story. We tell our story of the battles we did to try and get it. Now, I've tried to do that today in an interesting and engaging way. Hopefully, you guys still there? But, actually, it's all about the main story, because we're selfish. I am especially interested in the story because this guy is directly related to me. We have the same last name. He is my great-great-great-grandfather, despite all of my misgivings and concerns about the organization that he was part of. But I do want to get inside his head and know, like, what was he thinking? I know that he's pretty judgmental, but that's also part of being 21. It comes from being 21. It comes from being in a culture that implied, if not outright said, we're superior. English culture superior, British culture superior, European culture superior, and then came to a place like Egypt with its ancient cultures and go, yeah, they're doing all right. Man. But that is definitely being a product of your time. If you're born in 1816, you haven't had many other influences to tell you otherwise. So I'm not saying that it's okay. I'm saying that that's how it is. And that's the other thing with history. It's like knowing how it is. And then it's like saying it's not a good thing or a bad thing. It's a thing. And it's as good or bad as we make it. Now, that always comes up against reality when, what about obviously bad stuff? What about genocide? And what about the aspects of colonialism that is cultural genocide? I'm going to be covering this again in the future for sure. Absolutely for sure. It's good to have a moral sense of right and wrong. And it's good to take our time and come to those conclusions because, again, it's really easy if we make good guys and bad guys out of the past. It's very easy to go, well, I'm a good guy now, obviously, instead of the reflection and self-criticism that we need to have of going, how am I being the bad guy? That's probably the better thing, because we're not all one thing, are we? We can all do good and bad things all the time, and we all are inescapably products of our culture, our DNA, where we were born. When I was growing up, I used to think the convenient fiction that white people often think, which is everyone's an individual. I'm just responsible for what happens to me, that kind of thing. It's not exactly true. There's no such thing as a level playing field. I don't have and can't have the same experiences as my wife, who is Samoan, who grew up in New Zealand and Australia. And it's been so good being married to her for a long time and learning about her experience and trying to see the world through her eyes. It was great employing Chinese new immigrants to New Zealand in our previous life, and hearing and experiencing their journey. And then on the other hand, me being a native English speaker going into China, having a total different experience. So I couldn't even say I really know what it's like to be a foreigner. I do, in that I'm confused by the language, but I don't in that somebody like me doesn't go to China and get criticized for not speaking fluent Chinese. It's just not expected. Instead, I'll say ni hao, and oh my gosh, your Chinese is so good. There is a culture of encouragement because it's partly pragmatic, because Chinese knew that their future was trade from the 1970s onward. They knew that, okay, their future was trade. English language is so much part of trade. And so I wasn't necessarily being praised for my great Mandarin skills. Not that good, actually. nor my personality or character or anything. It was just, yes, that sort of came into it, and I've got genuine friends from China, but also I was representative of the English language, which, because of colonization, was a way to get somewhere and do something. And so that praise was because, you want to get on side with the people who speak the language that the whole world speaks. And that is a privilege that I don't want to escape it, but I also don't want to take it for granted either. And yeah, I just cannot understand the anti-immigrant crowd who, well, anti-immigrant, but they can't even handle Te Reo Māori, the indigenous language of New Zealand, being spoken. It's a really strange kind of fragility. Anyway, that's a whole other tangent for another time. But history, why do we learn it? We learn it because our ancestors made the world that we're in. We don't start with a blank slate. We start with a very peculiar world that we live in. If we think about the Cold War, communism and capitalism, those things didn't exist 400 years ago. Not really. Capitalism, maybe. But these sort of become almost religious beliefs. They become identities. And so, yeah, we are born and we grow up and we think that how we are at this time is the normal way of things and everything else is not normal. But as we start to look at history, the big sweep of things, we see how many different kinds of normal there are. So coming back to Charles Beecher Young, Lieutenant, I am curious and interested to know what his normal was, what it was like in 1837, what it was like as an Englishman being in Egypt, what it was like as an Englishman born and raised in India. Yeah, there's a lot to it. I've only just begun to scratch the surface. And again, if you're interested in this time period and this place, not so much Egypt, but India, then I really recommend the Empire podcast from William Dalrymple and Anita Anand. Also, William Dalrymple's written a ton of great books. The Anarchy is a good book about the East India Company. The Last Mughal is about the Indian Revolution and the end of the Mughal Empire. It's also really good to understand Islam as a Westerner Christian. It's good for me to understand Islam because it's one of the ideas that shapes the world. And so I was really pleased to meet up with a first cousin last week who we hadn't met since I was 3. So I didn't remember the last time we met. It was so good. What was also great is that he is a Sufi Muslim, and I was able to ask how he converted and a little bit about what did it mean. I know a little bit about Islam. I know how it's often misrepresented, especially by Westerners, especially by Christians, as a religion of war. It's not. Every scriptural tradition, every religion that has written works, those works get used by all kinds of agendas. Same with the Bible, same with the Quran. So anyway, that is part of my understanding of history, is actually what is Islam and its many ways of expression. What is this Islamic thinking? What was the Mughal Empire, which was displaced by this evil corporation, the East India Company? And it's a fascinating journey. So thank you so much for being on this journey today. This is recorded, so you can watch it again at any time. If you're not subscribed already to One Ancestor at a Time, please do. And the same to... Oopsie. Sorry about this. I have found the problem with double streaming on TikTok and YouTube. I had inactivity. So guys, I'm sorry. But anyway, just wanted to say thank you so much for being part of it on TikTok. Thanks for being part of it on YouTube. Don't forget to sign up for the mailing list where you get the whole deal. That is at oneancestor.co. No M at the end, just .co. So I am Suitaloa Simon Young. Thank you very much for learning history with me, one ancestor at a time. Till next time, ka kite.